pleasure I see. He hideth my soul in the cleft of the rock, that shadows a dry and a thirsty land. He hideth my life in the depths of His love, and covers me there with His hand, and covers me there with His hand.
Amen. God bless our brother for the beautiful rendition. As we are continuing with our health program, we are going to discuss about stress and how to manage out as well. And so we would call on our Dr. Diane Estrada to lead us and to enlighten us. Thanks a lot.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Is my sound okay?
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
can.
Let me just put up my PowerPoint. There. Hi, I'm Diane. I'm Dan Estrada. I'm a psychiatrist. Well, actually, I'm in my first year of training as a psychiatrist in Bethlehem Royal Hospital here in London. I used to work at Stepping Hill Hospital, and that's how Rachel found me through a common friend at Stepping Hill. I hope that I can come visit Manchester Piccadilly Church one time when I go over there for visits, because I would usually go to Stockport SDA Church. I don't know if you're familiar with that church, but that's where my membership is before I moved to London. This evening, I'm going to share with you a presentation about stress, how we can manage it. And I'm sure we can all relate to having feelings of stress because we experience it in our daily life. And when I think of stressors, one of the verses that come to my mind, one of my most favorite verses, is found in Habakkuk 3:17 and 18. It says, "Though the fig tree may not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, though the labor of the olive may fail, though the flock may be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd on the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord, I will joy in the God of my salvation." When these things happen, how can we do that? How can we rejoice? How can we find joy in such situations? Those are the times when the people in Bible times experience stress. But what is stress really? It is the adverse reaction people have to excessive pressures or other types of demand placed on them. And we're all familiar with this. Anybody who can tell me what you think are the common stressors that we have nowadays? There are different kinds of stress, actually. There's acute stress, which is stress that we encounter for just a short a period of time. And there is also stress that we carry for longer periods. A little bit of stress is, well, it can be good sometimes. It can be helpful because a little stress can get things, can help you get things done. It can help you do tasks and make you feel more energized. These low-level stressors could help you, for example, when you're about to take an exam. Some people find that if they study before an exam, they can quickly recall those things when they are taking the test, because that is, we can class that as an acute kind of stress, and it can be helpful. And if we have a deadline, sometimes that motivates us to work harder. And when it's staring you in the face, you feel like you have to really change your behavior to adapt and be more productive. So that kind of stress can be helpful at times. So that's in this slide, you can see it could be on the green part. But if you experience stress for a long period of time, then that can be very detrimental to our health. It can affect not just our mental health, but our physical health as well. What are common stressors? Have you given thought about what stresses you?
Sorry, Diane, quickly. We need to do a translation. So if the communication department can create the translation room, please, thank you. Because there's a translator, but there isn't any room for them.
All right, Dan, please, you can go on.
Okay, all right, thank you. And tell me if I'm speaking too fast. All right, so anything who can share what their stressors are, just the regular day-to-day stressors that we have.
Occupational stress.
That's right. We experience a lot of stress at work with deadlines, with our managers, and our workload. Our colleagues can also be very stressful. Thank you for that. What else?
I also think about demands that our children have on us as parents can also be stresses.
I'm not a parent yet, but I lived with my friend's family, and yes, sometimes I have noticed that there are stresses that children can place on their parents' demands, like the things that they need for school, and also you're thinking about how you can help them grow in a way that, or the experiences that you give them, how can you mold them and make them grow in faith? Those things can be stressors. And also parents can also be stressors for the children with expectations. Both ways. I think parents and children can be stressors for each other, husband and wife as well, and many relationships can add to our stress. And recently, let me just. So we have had COVID the past few years. Being sick can be a stressor. Finances can also add to the things that we're thinking about. Relationships, like we've discussed. Being sick and isolated. That's why a lot of people during COVID times became depressed and became anxious and mentally unwell. It's because they were isolated. They didn't have people to share their experience with, and they didn't have people close by to them to take care of them. And when it's not just when we are sick that is stressful, but also when our loved ones get sick, or when we lose somebody we love, a family member. That can be a big stressor for us. Sometimes we feel like it's an isolated experience, that it could be just us. And we think that we can't relate to anyone, especially people in the Bible. But did you know that there are some Bible characters that also felt stressed at one point in their lives? One of the common examples was Elijah. There was one time when he even asked God to take his life because he felt like he wasn't any better than any of his fathers. And we have, and there is one famous Bible character who said these words: "For my iniquities have gone over my head like a heavy burden. They are too heavy for me. My wounds are foul and festering because of my foolishness." These are such heavy words. He also said, "I am feeble and severely broken. I groan because of the turmoil of my heart." And he said that, "Lord, all my desire is before you, and my sighing is not hidden from you. My heart pants, my strength fails me. As for the light of my eyes, it has also gone from me." Who can relate to these words? Sometimes when I read the Psalms, I feel like David is speaking as if he sees my heart, because he seems like someone who is very courageous, very strong, very faithful to the Lord. But he also had times when the stress was too much for him, and these words came out from those experiences. And other Bible characters who experienced a lot of burdens and stress in their lives. We had Martha and Mary, whose brother got sick and died. That was Lazarus. And we had Hagar and Ishmael, who were asked to get out of the camp and be on their own. And God had to provide for them, for their physical needs. Job, who lost all his property, lost all his children, and became sick himself, I think was one of the most stressed people in the Bible. And we can read his struggles and trials in the book of Job. And we also have Joseph, who was betrayed by his brothers and sold to the Egyptians. And most importantly, we had Jesus, who right before the crucifixion even asked God the Father to take the cup of suffering from him because it was too heavy for him. So it's not just us who experienced stress, but also the characters in the Bible as well. Now, what does stress do to our body? How do you feel when you are stressed?
It makes you feel like you need someone to help you. You feel so down.
Mm-hmm. You feel helpless when you're stressed sometimes. And physically, when there's a real or perceived stress, this is important because we often experience real stress, something that is staring us in the face. But there are also times when we have perceived stress, something that is not actually very stressful at all, but it's the way our body reacts, or something we have had a previous experience or some trauma, and that makes you perceive that trigger as something that is stressful. So there is a perceived stress and a real stress. Both those stressors will have the same effect in your body. And in other terms, we have the fight or flight response, where hormones are released in our body. We have adrenaline, who makes our heart beat faster, so our heart rate will increase. Our blood pressure will increase as well to get the blood pumping into the different parts of your body, to your brain, to make you think better, and to your hands and feet to make you move faster. More oxygen gets into your blood, more available to your heart, your lungs, and your brain. So, and also so your awareness can be heightened. Even your vision and your hearing can be sharpened by acute stress. But that's the word. That's the important word. Acute stress can do that to us. But if the stress continues for a longer period of time, our body releases another hormone called cortisol, which is the stress hormone. It increases the sugar in our body and the availability of energy into your tissues. And it can be very helpful too, but in the long run, it would alter your immune response, suppress the digestive system, the reproductive system, and your growth as well. And as you can see from this slide, I'll just point out a few effects of stress. We would have, in the long run, we would have trouble concentrating, memory problems. We can have acne, skin problems. Our muscles would be stiff and tense. And your heart rate will continue to be fast, and your blood pressure will be increased as well, putting you at risk for a heart attack. And our stomach as well will produce more acid. That's why we have heartburn and reflux when we are stressed. We have increased risk of diabetes because of the increase in sugars and glucose in our body. And it can also cause diarrhea, constipation. That's why some people, when they're under a lot of stress, they develop irritable bowel syndrome, or they develop diarrhea or constipation. And for women, it can affect their periods and also their fertility. And it will also lower the immune system, or it will prevent you, or it will take longer for you to recover from an illness. So those are some of the things that happen in our body when we are always stressed. A lot of them not good, most of them actually. Any questions so far? All right, so I'll continue then. Now, when we are faced with stressors, what do we usually do to cope? From your experience.
Sometimes I just take fresh air or go to parks or have a me time.
That's a good way to cope with stress, and that's a healthy way to cope with stress. But some people, what they do, they eat a lot sometimes, and often not healthy food, like, for example, chocolates, sweets, ice cream. Mostly when you watch movies, when people are getting over a breakup, they would always have this huge tub of ice cream and they're eating it while they're crying. Some people, that's what they do to cope. They eat a lot, they depend on chocolate, sweets, pastries. Some of them drink a lot of coffee, alcohol. That's what they do to cope with stress. Some people just cope with stress by listening to music. Some people would cope by meditation, going to the spa, relaxation, essential oils. Some people would pour it out or rant on social media, put their thoughts, write a very long status on Facebook to get everything out, or watch reels so that they can be distracted from the stress. Some people watch movies, or some people do buy stuff to get over some stress and anxieties in life. Can you relate on any of those?
Yes.
Now,
Sometimes if
Yes.
I feel stressed, I always like to play music and give me a fresh mind or something like that.
That's good. That's a great way to cope with stress. So these things, the ones in this picture, are they good ways to cope with stress, you think? So there's somebody here who's smoking, drinking, eating a lot, somebody's on the computer watching, somebody's watching a lot of TV, gambling, calling people. These are actually unhealthy habits that people use when they are stressed. But the first tip that I'm going to give you on ways to cope with stress is to avoid unhealthy habits. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians 6:19-20, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. Sometimes we think when we are stressed, we deserve to eat some like chocolates or eat cake or eat ice cream. Sometimes we feel that, oh, we deserve a break. Let's go watch a movie or something like that, which once in a while, that's okay. But if you spend all that time just on those unhealthy habits, then that can also be detrimental to your health. And we can't just rely on alcohol, smoking, and caffeine as ways of coping. Some people find that it will give them temporary relief, but in the long term, those crutches won't solve your problems and they'll only create new ones. So it's best still to tackle your cause of stress instead of just distracting yourself or having these kinds of unhealthy habits when we are under duress. And my next tip, number 2, is be active. The human body can be compared to a nicely adjusted machinery which needs care to keep it in running order. One part should not be subjected to constant wear and pressure while the other part is rusting from inaction. And psychologists actually have a lot of studies that have resulted in that exercise relieves anxiety and depression. Even a 10-minute walk would be okay. Because since I moved to London, I'm finding it hard to exercise actually. When I was living in Stockport, I would always go out with my friends on a Sunday on walks to the Peak District or to a National Trust Lime Park. Those places like breathing fresh air, walking 12,000 steps on a given Sunday, seeing trees or hills, lakes, those kinds of things were my stress relievers back when I was up north. But now that I'm in London, there are some parks around, but I can't just go jogging because while jogging, it's not the fresh air that I will be inhaling. It's mostly smoke and the smell of cannabis around. So really, it's difficult when you're in the city, but I think near Manchester, there's so many other places to go jogging and to walk around. And that would be really nice to relieve stress. What are the benefits that we can get from exercise? It raises your self-esteem. You feel like you're being productive, and some people find that when they lose weight, they would feel better. And when you tell people, oh, I'm going to the gym, it feels like you're somebody who's really doing well, or you're really trying to be healthy and you feel good about yourself, even just saying it out loud. And it helps you set goals or challenges. And then when you achieve them, it gives you a boost, more motivation. It reduces the negative effects of stress. It helps your it helps protect your body against stress actually, because it boosts your cardiovascular, digestive, and immune systems as well. And it causes chemical changes in your brain, because when we exercise, our body releases endorphins, which is a feel-good hormone. And although it can sometimes be referred to as just a runner's high, because after you jog, you feel like your mind is so clear and you feel so good. That can contribute to the same feeling, and it will make you happy after exercise. It's also meditation in motion. What I do now, since I'm in the city, because there's a gym in our building, what I do is I just put earphones, play some relaxing hymns, and then I go on the treadmill, and then I meditate while I'm on the treadmill, and it really helps get my mind off the stressors at work. And it improves your mood. Exercise also improves your mood. But going to the gym can also be very stressful. When I first started going to the gym, I kept delaying, I kept procrastinating, because I'm very shy. I'm embarrassed to go there, and people will see that I'm not very fit. So it was a form of stress for me. But the Mayo Clinic said that almost any form of exercise or movement can increase your fitness level while decreasing your stress. It's not just going to the gym, lifting weights, or going on a bicycle in the gym. It can include walking, stair climbing, jogging, dancing, even gardening, and swimming can be helpful. But so the UK Chief Medical Officer's physical activity guidelines state that adults should try to be active every day and aim to do at least 150 minutes of physical activity over a week through various activities. And what counts as moderate physical activity? So moderate physical activity is actually any activity that makes you move quickly enough to increase your heart rate, make you breathe faster, and make you feel warmer. So that's why the examples are walking, gardening, hiking, dancing, cycling, active recreation or sports, and swimming. So in a week, you can try to do, these activities for at least 150 minutes. And that would contribute a lot to your mental well-being and also your physical health. It's also important to rest your body and your mind. So there should be a balance between physical activity and also rest. So God has provided us constitutional force, which will be needed at different periods of our life. If we recklessly exhaust this force by continual overtaxation, we shall sometimes be losers. Our usefulness will be lessened. If not, life itself will be destroyed. Some people cope with stress by overworking, trying to overcompensate, or if you really want to accomplish something, you push yourself too hard. But it's for your mental health. You should rest both your body and your mind. Getting more rest can decrease cortisol levels, which is what I said before. First, we release adrenaline in acute stress, but as the stress becomes chronic, our body releases cortisol. But getting rest can decrease the cortisol levels and restore the balance in our body. We need at least 7 to 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night to avoid the rise in hormone levels altogether and reduce existing feelings of stress and anxiety. And how can we do that? We can do that by getting enough sunlight in a day, which living in the UK, sometimes we don't get enough of. You know what I like now, that the days are longer and that there are more opportunities for the sun to come out. Sometimes I would go out in the sun with just, with the sun in my face, just to experience the heat on my face, and that relieves the stress for me. So get some sunlight, it's important, and exercise so that you'll be tired enough to go to sleep at night. And keep naps short. Daytime naps sometimes is not, well, they're not really helpful to us adults because then our circadian rhythm would be disrupted and it will be harder for us to sleep during the nighttime. Although I think for nurses, it's having night shifts can also be hard because then it's their schedule is completely disturbed. And avoid caffeine as well, so that will be able to sleep immediately at night. And avoid using electronics in bed. I'm guilty of this sometimes because just before going to bed, I'm scrolling through social media, and before I know it, it's already midnight and I haven't fallen asleep yet, and my mind is still so awake and alert because of what I'm reading, because of the light in my eyes. So they said to avoid using electronics in bed. There's also one tip that I heard from a teacher before. Do not it's best not to have any television or computers in the bedroom, especially when you're already in bed and you're still on your laptop working, reading, or on your phone, because our body would be so used to that. The bed should only be used for sleeping or for intimacy. That's what they said, because so that your mind and your body will adjust to that. And when you're in bed, your body will immediately know that, oh, it's time to sleep. So that will help you go to sleep better at night. And build a consistent sleep schedule. That's also very important. Any questions so far? All right, let's move on. So this is just a slide showing how many hours of sleep we need. So for an adult, 18 years old, 18 years and older, we should have 7 or more hours of sleep at night. Children and teenagers need more, actually, because they're still growing. And the next one is to eat healthy and whole meals. Learn for yourselves what you should eat, what kind of food best nourish the body, then follow the dictates of reason and conscience. This is not a matter of trifling importance. So what does, how come our diet can affect our stress levels? How can that be? Sometimes we feel, well, actually, people say that carbs are bad for you. In a way, there are some carbs that are really bad for you. We have simple and complex carbs. And a diet rich in whole grains, vegetables, and fruits, it's actually healthier than eating a lot of simple carbohydrates found in processed food. And what are those processed food that are just simple carbohydrates? So we have white bread, white pasta, white rice, cakes, cookies, candies, sodas, ice cream, and the like. What do you think these things have in common? Well, these kind of food are easily digested by our body, but actually, if we eat these kinds of carbohydrates, these kinds of meals, they give us a sugar high, which would be good at first because then you'll have energy immediately. But then when the sugar is gone, you might have a sudden drop and then you'll feel depressed, sad, and down again. So that wouldn't help with your stress. Even coffee, actually, that's why caffeine is bad, because when the effect of the caffeine is there, you'll get a boost, a sudden energy boost, but your body will already use up the energy, the glucose and the sugar, and then you'll have, afterwards, it's just downhill from there unless you drink coffee again or unless you eat something healthy again. And that when you get, when your sugar level goes down, you'll also feel depressed and you'll feel slow, sluggish, and that won't be helpful when you're stressed. And I found something about mindful reading. Now, during modern times, what we do, especially during lunch when we're working, we just eat too fast. We're not thinking about, we're not thinking about our food. We're not relaxing. It's just one task to do, eat, and then you go back to work. But that's not good for our mental health and also our physical health as well. So we should slow down, and even we should sit at the table, especially during dinner. We can sit down with our family members, have a chat around the table. Don't eat and watch the TV. Because some people would just eat while watching something on Netflix, and or even when the family members are there, you're eating, but then your eyes are all on the television. So that's also not very good. It's a time to sit around and eat together, talk to each other about your day, and that would lessen stress. And mindful eating also, one thing that we can do so that we'll be able to enjoy the food better is put the fork down after every bite, so we can slow down and we can chew more, not like eating too fast, just shoving the food in your mouth and then swallowing it. It's best to savor it, put the fork down between bites, close your eyes and savor the food, focus on the taste, chew your food really to get the feel, and eat with your non-dominant hand. I was thinking, why was this suggested? Eat with your non-dominant hand, because when we're eating, well, we concentrate more if we're using our non-dominant hand, and that would help slow you down when you're eating as well. And don't eat straight from the packaging. Like especially for those young people on the go who just buy the readily prepared meals in the shops, where you just put it in the microwave and then you can eat it immediately after. It's still best, even if you're eating those kinds of food, you can put it on a nice plate, arrange it nicely, and then eat it slowly, so that at least you can be relaxed while you're eating and you feel as if the meal it's not just an instant meal, and that will help with your relaxation as well. And it's also important to build supportive relationships. When friends are helpful to everybody when they're sad and discouraged, and a personal presence will comfort you and impart stress. And sometimes Satan sends his angels to cause us to stumble, but true friends will counsel us, will impart hopefulness, calming faith that uplifts the soul, and that kind of help, according to Ellen G. White, is more precious than pearls. Build supportive relationships. That's one very important thing that can help us when we're stressed. When we have someone we can depend on, even just a friend who you can share your burdens and your troubles with, that is very helpful. Social support is an important protective factor for dealing with life's difficulties, while loneliness has been associated with a wide variety of health problems like high blood pressure, diminished immunity, cardiovascular disease, and cognitive decline, according to the American Psychological Association. Somebody you can pray with, somebody you can read the Bible with, someone who can send you a nice Bible verse when you're feeling alone or when you're feeling burdened. That's a very helpful boost. And we have to put things into perspective as well. The Bible says, "Therefore I tell you not to worry about your life, whatever you eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? And look at the birds of the air." So if the birds of the air, they don't work, they just fly, they just look for food and things like that. They don't reap, they don't sow away in barns, and yet our Heavenly Father watches over them. And look at the flowers of the field. That's all of them, even them, like, the cherry blossoms, the daffodils, when you look at them, they don't have any, they're not working, and yet, according to the Bible, even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. And if God cares for the sparrows, how much more does he care about his children, and how much more will he provide for our needs? And lastly, it's important to ask for help. Ask for help, not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. You're not alone. There are people who care for you. You have your church, Manchester Piccadilly Church, and you have your family in Christ. Don't forget to ask for help. And here are some UK mental health crisis hotlines. You can take a photo or a screenshot. We have the Samaritans hotline that you can talk to about anything that's upsetting you. Sane Line if you're experiencing a mental health problem, or if you know someone who's struggling. And a campaign against living miserably, the numbers are there. But it's still best to share your troubles and your problems with people that you know personally. But if there's no one that you can call at that particular time, these numbers are very helpful. So take note of them. And one of my favorite stories in the Bible, it's in this picture. It's about the demon-possessed man. In Mark 5, I'm always touched by the description of Mark by this man in Mark 5, verse 5. And always night and day he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying out, cutting himself with stones. This man was crying and cutting himself day and night. And he was in a lot of stress. He was mentally unwell. But when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshipped him. And what did Jesus do? Jesus cleansed him from his demons. And what did Jesus say afterwards? Go home to your friends and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he has had compassion on you. So whenever we're experiencing stresses, burdens, let us go to Christ, and we can always depend on him, and our Heavenly Father will always provide our needs. But those things that I have shared with you, I hope they will also be, those things will also be helpful. And when you're experiencing stresses or burdens in life, hopefully you will remember them. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and I hope that you learned something from this evening's health lecture.
Thank you very much, Dr. Diane. Yeah, much enlightened. God bless you for the mixture of Bible verses, for the statistics, for the advice. Thank you so much. At this point, we would like to take one or two questions. And if there are, after any questions, if there are more questions that is put to the doctor, we ask you to please channel it to our health ministries. So one or two questions as our time is almost up. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. Can I go on, Mercy?
Yes, please, you can.
Okay. Yeah, so my question is to Diane. Yeah, so you made mention of sleeping 6 to 7 hours. And then you highlighted on those who do night shifts. So those who do night shifts don't sleep in the night, but they compensate for that loss of sleep during the day. Can you refer that one to as napping, And does it contribute to stress? Please.
Okay. So thank you for that question, because I also work night shifts, so it's also very relevant to me. The kind of sleep that we need when we're, after working nights and then you go home, it's best if you sleep straight 7 hours instead of just like a nap. A nap is like a short sleep, like a few hours of sleep. Not I can't remember from med school, because they gave us a definite definition of a nap versus sleep for how long a nap usually takes. But a nap is only a few minutes or like a couple of hours. But sleep is what we get, the 90 minutes, the deep sleep that we get in the sleep cycle. So you need more than that amount of time, several sleep cycles, in order for you to have a restful sleep. So best if you, because some people during the day, after a night shift, they still do other stuff, take care of their children, and then get like a couple of hours of sleep before going to work the next night. So still set apart 6 to 7 hours of sleep, straight sleep, where you turn down the blinds with the room completely dark to simulate the sleep that you get during nighttime. So you'll get the same effect in your body as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll take our last question. Okay. Okay. I have a question. How do you identify stress in very young children? It can be difficult to identify stress in a child, for instance, from infancy to about 3 months or something like that, or even in children. How do you identify that? Thank you.
In young children, usually they still don't know how to express themselves. So they won't be able to tell you that I'm frustrated, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm angry. They express it by throwing tantrums or shouting, crying, or changes in behavior. Sometimes that can be very telling in young children. Regression can be a form of a way that they can express their stress. For example, like a child who's already been toilet trained, and then suddenly he starts to wet the bed at night, or he doesn't tell you that he needs to go to the toilet anymore. Instead, he just wheezes on the floor. But before he already knew how to do that. So that can give you idea that maybe there's something going on. Or for example, when a brother or sister, when he gets a new brother or sister, and then they start to be to throw more tantrums, or they keep trying to test your patience. That can be a way that they're showing you that something is going on. They're stressed, they're frustrated, they just can't tell you. But in their behavior, you can tell.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure it's not the same in elderly people who can't really voice out when they're stressed, like the people with the dementia and stuff like that. But we've got a lot of questions, so I'm sure we'll pass it to our health ministries to be passed on to you, and I know it will be answered later on. Thank you so much, Dr. Diane, and we hope to see you some other time to give us more of the knowledge on stress and management of burnout. God richly bless you. So at this point, we'll pass on to our personal ministries team to give us our Bible studies.